In 1894, a young man stepped off a ship in the port of Santos carrying 2 leather balls and a rule book. The sport he brought was meant for gentlemen, white, wealthy, British gentlemen. Within 60 years, that same sport would belong to the poorest children of Brazil. And they would play it in a way the world had never seen and has never stopped watching since. This is not a story about a game. This is the story of how an excluded people took the toy of the elite and turned it into a national soul. Ask anyone on Earth to name one thing about Brazil, and the answer comes before they finish thinking. Football, 5 World Cups. Pelé, Garrincha, Ronaldo. The yellow shirt that means something even to people who have never watched a match. But here is what almost nobody knows. Football did not begin in Brazil as a passion of the people. It began as a wall, built specifically to keep most Brazilians out. And the obsession the world sees today was not born from love alone. It was born from a fight to get in. Charles Miller was the son of a Scottish railway engineer, born in São Paulo, educated in England. When he returned to Brazil in 1894, he brought football with him. And he gave it to the only people he knew, the British expatriates, the coffee barons, the banking elite. Picture São Paulo at the turn of the century. Manicured cricket fields behind iron gates. Men in pressed white uniforms playing before small crowds of women with parasols. Clubs with British names, British rules, and membership lists that read like a registry of European surnames. Football was not entertainment. It was a statement of class, and in a country that had abolished slavery only 6 years before Miller's arrival, the last nation in the Americas to do so, the message was understood by everyone. This game is not for you. Black Brazilians were barred from the clubs. Poor Brazilians could not afford the boots. The sport of the people had not yet met the people, but it would. Because a ball, unlike a cricket field, cannot be fenced in. You cannot control where a ball rolls. Factory workers watched matches through fences and made their own balls from rags and socks. Dock workers in Rio improvised games between shifts. In the growing hillside communities, the favelas, children played barefoot on dirt, on sand, in alleys barely wider than a doorway. And something happened in those alleys that would change the sport forever. On a proper English pitch, football is a game of space and order. But in a crowded street, there is no space. To keep the ball, you must invent. The feint, the touch, the body swerve, the ball glued to the foot, because losing it means losing your only one. The elite played football as it was written. The streets rewrote it. By the 1910s, factory teams and neighborhood clubs were multiplying faster than anyone could stop. And in 1923, a club of working-class players, black, mixed race, and poor, did the unthinkable. Vasco da Gama won the Rio Championship with a team the elite refused to shake hands with. The response was swift. The major clubs created a new league, with entry requirements designed to exclude players who could not read, who did not have formal jobs. Requirements written for one purpose. It did not work. It was already too late. Arthur Friedenreich had a German father, a black Brazilian mother, and a problem. He was the best footballer in the country, in an era when the national team preferred not to select men who looked like him. Before matches, he flattened his hair. Teammates recall him arriving early to press it down, trying to soften the evidence of his ancestry. He scored over 1,000 goals. Most Brazilians have never heard his name, but the dam was breaking. In 1938, a black Brazilian named Leônidas da Silva, the inventor of the bicycle kick as the world knows it, became the star of the World Cup in France. Newspapers in Europe called him the Black Diamond. Back home, children who had been told the game belonged to someone else saw a man from their world become the best on earth. The wall Charles Miller's generation built was falling. And then, in 1950, Brazil learned how much this game had come to mean. In the cruelest way possible. The World Cup, at home. The Maracanazo, the largest stadium ever built. 200,000 people. Brazil needed only a draw against Uruguay. Uruguay won. The silence that followed is still described by historians as a national trauma. Not because of sport, because by 1950, football was no longer a game in Brazil. It was the one arena where a young, mixed, dismissed nation could stand above the old world. Losing did not break the obsession. It proved how deep it already ran. 8 years later, in Sweden, a 17-year-old from a poor family in Minas Gerais scored twice in a World Cup final. The world met Pelé, and beside him, Garrincha, a man with legs bent by childhood illness who dribbled not to advance, but seemingly for the joy of it, sometimes beating the same defender twice, just because he could. Brazil won, then won again in 1962. Then, in 1970, in color television's first World Cup, produced the most beautiful football ever recorded, and won a third. The world gave it a name, O Jogo Bonito, the beautiful game. But here is the truth hidden inside that phrase. The style the world fell in love with, the improvisation, the audacity, the dance, was not designed. It was inherited from the alleys, from the rag balls, from generations of players who learned the game in places where creativity was not a luxury, but survival. The elite gave Brazil the rules of football. The excluded gave Brazil its soul. Today, there are more than 200 million Brazilians, and it is said, only half as a joke, that every one of them is a national team coach. The obsession is not really about trophies. Brazil's relationship with football is the story of a people who were told to watch from outside the fence, and who answered by becoming so undeniable that the fence came down. Every barefoot child on every beach kicking a worn-out ball is repeating a 100-year-old act of quiet defiance. The gentleman brought the game. Brazil made it beautiful. And the next time you see that yellow shirt, you will know. It was never just football. If stories like this fascinate you, the hidden origins behind the world's most famous traditions, subscribe. There are many more walls, myths, and revolutions to uncover. And tell me in the comments, which country's obsession should we decode next?